The space station called HerHFY floated in the darkness between three solar systems. It was a place where many species came to trade, to talk, and to live together. Humans had built it 50 years ago, but now it belonged to everyone. Tall beings with 6 arms walked beside small creatures with fur. Robots served food to aliens with glowing skin. It was a busy place, full of life and noise and the smell of 100 different worlds. Vila stepped off her transport ship and looked around with wide eyes. She had never been so far from home before. She was young for her kind, only 40 years old, which was like being 25 in human years. Her people, the Nuri, lived for a very long time. They were tall and thin, with smooth, pale skin that glowed softly from within. The glow came from special channels inside their bodies called bioducts. These ducts cleaned their blood and kept them healthy. When a Nuri was happy and well, they shone like a gentle lamp. When they were sick or sad, their light grew dim. Right now, Vila's light was not as bright as it should be. She told herself it was just tiredness from the long journey. 3 weeks in a small ship would make anyone feel weak. She picked up her bag and walked toward the station's main hall. Her mission was important. She was a junior diplomat, sent to make a trade agreement between her people and the station council. The Nuri had special crystals that could power ships for hundreds of years. Many species wanted these crystals. Vila's job was to make sure her people got a fair deal. At the entrance to the main hall, a human guard stopped her. He was tall, with dark hair and a friendly face. His name tag said, "Park, welcome to HerHFY," he said. "All new arrivals need a medical scan. It is just a quick check. Nothing to worry about," Vela nodded. She had expected this. Many stations did the same thing to stop diseases from spreading. She followed another guard to a small medical room nearby. The room was clean and white. A human male sat at a desk looking at a computer screen. He turned when Vila entered, and she saw his face clearly for the first time. He had kind eyes and a calm expression. His black hair was a little messy, like he had been running his hands through it. He looked tired but not unhappy. "Hello," he said, standing up. "I am Toho. I am the xenobiologist here. That means I study alien bodies and help keep everyone healthy. Please, sit down. This will only take a few minutes." Vela sat on the examination table. Toho picked up a small device and moved it slowly around her body. The device hummed quietly as it scanned her. "You are Nuri," Toho said. "I have read about your people, but I have never met one before. Your biology is very interesting." "The bioduct system is quite beautiful, actually." Vela felt a small warmth at his words. Most species did not understand her people's bodies. They found the glowing skin strange or even frightening. But this human seemed genuinely curious.
"Thank you,"
she said. "We are proud of our light. It is part of who we are." Toho nodded, still looking at his device. Then his expression changed. His eyebrows came together, and he leaned closer to the screen. He moved the scanner over her chest again, then her stomach. "Something wrong?" Vela asked. Ho did not answer immediately. He tapped some buttons and studied the results. Finally, he looked up at her with concern in his eyes. "I am seeing something unusual," he said slowly. "There appears to be a blockage forming in your primary filtration duct. It is small right now, but it is growing." Vila felt her heart go cold. She knew what those words meant. Among her people, a blocked duct was one of the worst things that could happen. The ducts were too delicate to operate on. Their physicians had tried many times over thousands of years, but the surgery always failed. The patient always died. "How bad is it?" she asked, keeping her voice steady. "It is in the early stages," Toho said. "If we act now, there might be something we can do. I would like to examine you more carefully and discuss treatment options." Vila shook her head and stood up. "There are no treatment options. Not for this." Toho looked surprised. "But modern medicine has made many advances. Perhaps there is a procedure that could help. I have experience with similar conditions in other species." "You do not understand," Vela said. Her voice was quiet but firm. "Among my people, this condition is a death sentence. Our own physicians cannot fix it. The ducts are too small, too fragile. Every attempt at surgery has ended in failure. And even if there was a way, I could not accept it. Why not? Vila looked away. It is forbidden. Our customs say that when the body fails in this way, we must accept it with dignity. To let an outsider touch our internal systems would bring great shame. My family would be dishonored. My name would be spoken with pity for generations. Tejo was silent for a moment. Then he said gently, I understand that your culture is important to you, but perhaps we could at least monitor the blockage. See how fast it is growing. That would give you more information to make decisions. Bella shook her head again. I thank you for your concern, human. But I know what I must do. I will complete my mission here, and then I will return home to be with my family. She picked up her bag. Please do not speak of this to anyone. I do not want people to treat me differently. Tejo stood up but did not try to stop her. I will respect your wishes, he said. But please, if you change your mind or if you feel worse, come back to me. My door is always open. Vela nodded once and left the medical room. She walked through the busy halls of the station, surrounded by hundreds of beings from dozens of worlds. But she had never felt so alone. Inside her body, she could almost feel the blockage growing. Like a tiny stone slowly cutting off her light, she found her quarters and sat down on the small bed. The room was simple, but clean. A window showed the stars outside, bright and cold and endless. Vela looked at her hands. They were still glowing, but the light seemed weaker than before. Or maybe she was just imagining it. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She had a job to do. Her people were counting on her. She would not let them down, no matter what was happening inside her body. She would be strong. She would be dignified. She would make her family proud. But late that night, when she was alone in the darkness, she allowed herself to cry. The tears ran down her glowing cheeks and fell onto her pillow like tiny drops of starlight far away. In his small office, Tejo sat at his desk and stared at the scan results on his screen. He had seen many things in his years as a xenobiologist. He had treated diseases that had no names and saved lives that others had given up on. But something about this case troubled him deeply. He pulled up everything he could find about neurobiology. He read late into the night, his coffee growing cold beside him. Somewhere in all this information, there had to be an answer. There had to be a way. He refused to believe that a young woman had to die simply because no one had tried hard enough to save her. 3 days passed on. HerHFY Vila worked hard on her mission. She attended meetings with the station council. She talked to traders and business leaders. She smiled and shook hands and presented her people's offer with grace and skill. Everyone agreed that she was a talented diplomat. They said her people had sent the right person, but Vila knew the truth. Each morning she woke up feeling weaker than the day before. Her body ached in ways she could not explain. When she looked in the mirror, she could see that her glow was fading. The light that once shone bright and steady now flickered like a candle in the wind. She ate less. Food had lost its taste. She slept more, but the sleep brought no rest. Dark circles appeared under her eyes. Her smooth skin began to look gray at the edges. Still, she kept working. She had to. Her people needed this trade agreement. She could not fail them. On the third day, she was sitting in a large meeting room with representatives from 5 different species. The head of the station council, a human named Heian, was explaining the final terms of the agreement. He was an older man with gray hair and a serious face, but he had been fair and reasonable throughout the negotiations. Vela tried to focus on his words, but they seemed to come from very far away. The room felt too hot. The lights felt too bright. She blinked and tried to concentrate. Miss Vela Heian said, "Do you find these terms acceptable?" Vila opened her mouth to answer, but no words came out. Instead, a wave of dizziness crashed over her. The room spun. The faces around her blurred and stretched. She reached for the table to steady herself, but her hands would not obey her commands. She fell. People shouted. Chairs scraped against the floor. Someone caught her before she hit the ground. Through her fading vision, she saw faces looking down at her with fear and confusion. Her light was flickering wildly now, going bright and dim in strange patterns. "Get a medic," someone yelled. "She is dying." The next thing Vela knew, she was lying on a bed in the station's medical center. Bright lights shone above her. Strange machines beeped and hummed. Several doctors stood around her, speaking in low voices. She recognized one of them. It was Tejo, the human who had scanned her when she first arrived. His face was pale with worry. "What happened?" Vela asked weakly. "You collapsed," Tejo said. "Your body is shutting down. The blockage in your duct has grown much faster than I expected. Toxins are building up in your blood. If we do not do something soon—" He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. The other doctors came forward. There was a tall alien with blue skin and 4 eyes, and a small robot that served as the station's chief medical officer. They examined Vela with their instruments and spoke among themselves. "The neurobioduct system is too specialized," the blue alien said sadly. "We do not have the tools or the knowledge to operate on it. One wrong move could kill her instantly." "Is there no one who can help?" Hewan asked. He had followed them to the medical center and was standing near the door. "We have contacted her people," the robot said. "They are sending a response now." A few minutes later, a holographic screen appeared in the air. On it was an elderly Nuri male with dim, tired light. He wore the robes of a senior physician. "I am Dr. Nal," he said. "I have reviewed the patient's scans. I am sorry to say that there is nothing we can do. The blockage is too deep, too dangerous. Our surgical techniques are not advanced enough." "Then what do we do?" Tejo asked. Dr. Nell's expression was calm but sad. "You do nothing. Among our people, this is considered a natural death. When the body fails in this way, we accept it. We do not fight against the will of nature." He looked at Vela through the screen. "Child, you have served your people well. Return home. Spend your remaining time with your family. Go with dignity." The screen went dark. Vela closed her eyes. She had known this would happen. She had prepared herself for it. But hearing the words out loud made it feel suddenly, terribly real. "No," Tejo said quietly. Everyone looked at him. "No," he said again, louder this time. "I do not accept this. There has to be something we can do." "You heard the Nuri doctor," the blue alien said. "Their own people cannot save her." "What makes you think you can?" "Because I have seen this before," Tejo said. His voice was firm. "Not exactly this, but something similar. Humans have a condition where ducts in our body become blocked. It is called biliary obstruction. The symptoms are almost the same, and we have learned how to fix it." "Human biology is different from Nuri biology," the robot said. "Yes, but the principle is the same. A small blockage in a narrow channel, causing toxins to build up. We use microsurgical techniques to remove the blockage. Tiny tools, guided by computer, making cuts smaller than a hair." Tejo turned to look at Vela. "I cannot promise it will work. No one has ever tried this on a Nuri before. But I believe there is a chance." Vela opened her eyes and looked at him. "You would do this? Even though you know nothing of my people's bodies?" "I have been studying Nuri biology for 3 days," Tejo said. "I have read every paper, every study, every report I could find. Your ducts are more delicate than human ducts, yes, but they are not so different. The blockage in your body is almost exactly like the blockages I have treated in humans dozens of times." "It is forbidden," Vela whispered. "My people would never forgive me. Your people want you to die," Tejo said gently. "Is that what you want?" Vela did not answer. Tears formed in her eyes and ran down her gray cheeks. Hewn stepped forward. "Tejo, I understand your intentions are good, but we must respect her culture. If she does not want the surgery, we cannot force her." "I am not forcing anyone," Tejo said. "I am offering her a choice that no one else is willing to give her." He knelt beside Vela's bed and took her hand. His touch was warm and gentle. "I will not lie to you," he said. "The surgery is risky. It might not work. You might die on the operating table. But right now, you are dying anyway. Slowly, painfully, without hope. Vila looked into his eyes. She saw no judgment there, no pressure, only kindness and concern. "Why?" she asked. "Why do you care so much about a stranger from another world?" Tejo smiled softly. "Because that is what humans do. We help people, even when it is hard, even when others say it is impossible, even when the person we want to help has given up on themselves." He squeezed her hand. "You do not have to decide now. I will be in my office. If you want to talk, or if you change your mind, I will be there." He stood up and walked out of the room. Vila lay in the bed, surrounded by machines and strangers, and thought about everything she had been taught since childhood. She thought about duty and honor and dignity. She thought about her family back home, waiting for her return. And she thought about the warm touch of a human hand, and the strange, stubborn hope in his eyes. Outside the window, the stars continued to shine, cold and distant and eternal. But somewhere inside Vila's failing body, a tiny spark of something new had begun to glow. The medical center had given Vila a private room. They said it was for her comfort, but she knew the truth. They expected her to die soon, and they wanted to give her peace in her final hours. The room was quiet. A single window showed the endless darkness of space. Vila lay on the bed, feeling her body grow weaker with each passing hour. Her light had faded so much that she could barely see her own glow anymore. The toxins in her blood made everything hurt. Her head throbbed. Her muscles ached. Even breathing had become difficult. She thought about her home world. She thought about the purple mountains and the crystal lakes. She thought about her mother and father, waiting for news of her mission. She thought about her younger brother, who had cried when she left because he was afraid he would never see her again. Now it seemed his fears would come true. There was a soft knock at the door. Vela did not have the strength to answer, but the door opened anyway. Tejo stepped inside, carrying a small chair. He placed it beside her bed and sat down. "I hope I am not disturbing you," he said quietly. Vela shook her head slightly. "I cannot sleep anyway. The pain is too much." Tejo nodded. He did not offer medicine or false comfort. He simply sat with her in the silence. After a while, Vila spoke. "Tell me about Earth," she said. "Tell me about humans." Tejo looked surprised by the request, but he thought for a moment and then began to talk. "Earth is a small world," he said. "Blue and green, with one moon that shines silver at night. Humans have lived there for a long time, but for most of that time, we were weak. We had no claws, no fangs, no armor. We could not run as fast as other animals or see as well in the dark. How did you survive?" Vila asked. "We helped each other," Tejo said. "When one person was hurt, others would carry them. When one person was hungry, others would share their food. We learned that together we were stronger than alone. That is how we survived. That is how we built cities and ships and eventually flew to the stars." Vela was quiet for a moment. "My people are different," she said. "We value independence, strength, self-reliance. To need help is to be weak. To accept help is to admit failure." "I understand," Tejo said. "Many cultures feel that way. But I have always believed that asking for help is not weakness. It is wisdom. It means you know your own limits. It means you trust others enough to let them see you at your most vulnerable." Vela turned her head to look at him. In the dim light, his face was gentle and calm. "Are you not afraid?" she asked. "If you try to save me and fail, my people will blame you. They might even demand punishment." "I am afraid," Tejo admitted, "but not of your people. I am afraid of doing nothing. I am afraid of watching you die when I might have been able to help. That is a fear I cannot live with." "Why?" Vela asked again. "I am no one to you. Just a stranger who arrived on your station a few days ago. Why do you care so much?" Tejo was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. "When I was young," he said, "my grandmother became very sick. The doctors said there was nothing they could do. They said we should take her home and make her comfortable. They said we should accept what was happening." He paused. but my father did not accept it. He searched for other doctors, other treatments, other options. He fought for her life even when everyone said it was hopeless. And he found a way. A new surgery, experimental and dangerous. My grandmother agreed to try it. Did it work? Vela asked. Tae-Ho smiled. She lived for another 20 years. She saw me graduate from medical school. She held my hand when I got my first job. She was there when I left Earth to come to this station. His smile faded. She died last year, peacefully, surrounded by family. She had a full life. A happy life, because someone refused to give up on her. Tears formed in Vela's eyes. That is a beautiful story, she whispered. I cannot promise you 20 more years, Tae-Ho said. I cannot promise you anything, but I can promise that I will try. With everything I have, with every skill I possess, I will try to save you. Not because I want something from you, not because I expect anything in return, but because that is what my grandmother taught me. That is what it means to be human. He reached out and took her hand. His fingers were warm against her cold skin. You've been taught that accepting help brings shame, he said. But I have been taught that offering help brings honor. Among my people, the greatest heroes are not the ones who fight alone. They are the ones who lift others up. They are the ones who refuse to let anyone face the darkness by themselves. Vela felt something change inside her. It was like a wall crumbling, a door opening, a light breaking through clouds. All her life, she had believed that dignity meant suffering in silence. That honor meant facing death without flinching. That strength meant never needing anyone. But looking into Tae-Ho's eyes, she saw a different kind of strength. A strength built on connection, on compassion, on the simple act of reaching out to another person in need. My people will never understand, she said softly. Maybe not at first, Tae-Ho agreed. But you will still be alive to explain it to them. You will still be there to show them that there is another way. Vela thought about her mother, her father, her little brother. She thought about the life she had not yet lived, the things she had not yet done, the person she had not yet become. She did not want to die. She had been telling herself that she was ready, that she had accepted her fate, but it was a lie. She was afraid. She was so very afraid. I want to live, she whispered. The words came out like a confession, like a secret she had been hiding even from herself. Tae-Ho squeezed her hand. Then let me help you. For a long moment, Vela said nothing. Then, slowly, she lifted her other hand and placed it on top of his. Among her people, this gesture meant absolute trust. It meant putting your life in another person's hands. Yes, she said. I give you my consent. Please, Tae-Ho. Save me. Tae-Ho stood up, still holding her hand. His expression was serious, but determined. I will begin preparations immediately, he said. The surgery will happen tomorrow morning. Tonight, you should rest as much as you can. He moved toward the door, then stopped and looked back. Vela, he said, you are not weak for wanting to live. You are brave. Braver than anyone I have ever met. He left the room, and Vela was alone again. But somehow, the darkness did not feel so heavy anymore. Somehow, the pain did not hurt so much. She looked at her hands. They were still dim, still gray, still fading. But deep inside, in a place that had nothing to do with bioducts or toxins, she felt a warmth spreading through her body. It was hope. She closed her eyes and, for the first time in days, she fell into a peaceful sleep. The surgical room was cold and bright. Machines lined the walls, blinking with colored lights. In the center stood a long table covered in white cloth. Above it hung a cluster of robotic arms, each one ending in tools smaller than a human eyelash. Tae-Ho stood at a control station, checking the equipment one final time. He had not slept. He had spent the entire night preparing, practicing, going over every detail in his mind. His eyes were red with exhaustion, but his hands were steady. 2 people worked beside him. The first was Jay, a human nurse who had served on the station for 10 years. She was calm and experienced, the kind of person who never panicked no matter what happened. The second was Sue, an engineer who had spent all night modifying the surgical tools to work with neurobiology. She was young but brilliant, with quick fingers and a sharp mind. "Everything is ready," Sue said, stepping back from the equipment. "I have adjusted the cutting instruments to be 30% finer than standard. They should be delicate enough for Nuri tissue." "Should be?" Taeho asked. Sue shrugged. "There is no way to test them except on the patient. No one has ever done this before."
Taeho
nodded. He had known that from the beginning. This surgery was a gamble, a desperate attempt to save a life that everyone else had given up on. The door opened, and Vila was brought in on a floating bed. She was conscious, but weak. Her light had faded to almost nothing. Her skin looked like old paper, gray and thin. But her eyes were open, and when she saw Taeho, she managed a small smile. "I am ready," she said. Her voice was barely a whisper. Taeho walked over and took her hand. "I will be with you the whole time," he said. "I will not let anything bad happen to you," Vila nodded. She did not have the strength to speak anymore. The medical team transferred her to the surgical table. Jay attached monitors to her body to track her heart rate, her blood pressure, her oxygen levels. The numbers appeared on a screen above the table, blinking softly. "Beginning anesthesia," Jay said. She pressed a button, and a gentle mist covered Vila's face. Within seconds, her eyes closed, and her body relaxed. Taeho took his position at the control station. Through a large screen, he could see inside Vila's body. The image showed her bioduct system, a network of glowing channels that spread through her like the roots of a tree. Most of the channels were dim and clogged with toxins. Near the center of her chest, he could see the blockage. It was a small, hard mass, no bigger than a grain of rice. But it was killing her. "Beginning procedure," Taeho said. He moved his hands over the controls, and the robotic arms came to life. They descended toward Vela's body with perfect precision. A tiny laser made a cut in her skin, less than a centimeter wide. The arms entered the opening and began to navigate through her body. The work was incredibly delicate. Nuri tissue was softer than human tissue, more sensitive to damage. One wrong move could cause bleeding that could not be stopped. One slip could tear a duct that could not be repaired. Taeho had to guide the tools through a maze of channels, each one thinner than a thread. "Vitals are stable," Jay reported. "Heart rate slightly elevated, but within normal range." Taeho did not respond. All his attention was on the screen. He could see the blockage now, a dark spot in the glowing network. He moved the tools closer, millimeter by millimeter. 2 hours passed, then 3. Taeho's back ached from standing so still. Sweat ran down his face, but he did not dare wipe it away. His hands moved with mechanical precision, never shaking, never hesitating. Suddenly an alarm sounded. The numbers on the screen flashed red. "Her pressure is dropping," Jay said urgently. "We are losing her." Taeho felt his heart freeze. He looked at the image and saw the problem immediately. One of the small ducts had started to collapse. Toxins were flooding into her bloodstream faster than her body could handle. "Stabilizer," Taeho commanded. "Give her the compound we prepared." Jay injected a clear liquid into Vila's arm. It was a mixture that Taeho had created based on his research, designed to neutralize neurotoxins temporarily. No one knew if it would work. For a terrible moment, nothing happened. The alarms kept screaming. Vila's body began to shake. Then slowly the numbers started to climb. Her heart rate steadied. Her blood pressure rose. The shaking stopped. "She is stable again," Jay said, letting out a breath she had been holding. Taeho allowed himself 1 second of relief. Then he returned to work. At the 4-hour mark, another crisis came. The station received a transmission from the Nuri government. Hien took the call in the observation room above the surgery. "You must stop this immediately," the Nuri official demanded. His face was red with anger. "What you are doing is a violation of our sacred customs. If this human continues, we will consider it an act of aggression against our entire species." Hien looked down at the surgical room. He saw Taeho working with intense concentration. He saw Vila's still body on the table. He saw the small team fighting to save her life. "The procedure is already underway," Hien said calmly. I will not order my people to let her die. Then you will face the consequences, the official warned. We will cut all ties with your station. We will tell every species in the galaxy what you have done. That is your choice, Hyun said. But I have made mine. He ended the transmission. 6 hours. Then 7. Taeho had reached the blockage. Now came the most dangerous part. He had to cut into the mass and remove it piece by piece, without damaging the duct around it. The margin for error was less than 0. His tools touched the blockage. He made the first cut. Vila's body jerked. Alarms screamed again. Stay with me, Taeho whispered, though he knew she could not hear him. Just a little longer. You can do this. He cut again. And again. Each piece he removed was so small, it was almost invisible. But slowly, the blockage shrank. The dark spot grew smaller and smaller. Finally, after 7 hours and 23 minutes, Taeho lifted the last piece of the blockage out of Vila's body. He dropped it into a small container and stepped back from the controls. It is done, he said. For a moment, nothing happened. The room was silent except for the soft beeping of machines. Then Vila's body began to change. The gray color started to fade from her skin. The dim glow that had been almost gone began to grow brighter. It spread through her like water, filling an empty vessel, reaching every part of her body. Brighter and brighter she glowed, until the surgical room was filled with soft white light. The monitors showed her vitals, improving rapidly. Her heart grew stronger. Her blood became cleaner. Her body was healing itself now that the blockage was gone. Jay laughed with joy. Sue hugged Taeho from behind. Even the normally quiet machines seemed to hum with happiness. On the table, Vela opened her eyes. They were clear and bright, full of life. She looked at Taeho and smiled. Thank you, she whispered. Taeho smiled back. He was exhausted, hungry, and sore in every muscle. But in that moment, looking at the light returning to her body, he felt like the luckiest person in the galaxy. Welcome back, he said. 1 month had passed since the surgery. Vela stood in front of her mirror in the quarters that had become her home on HerHFY. Her reflection glowed with soft, steady light. Her skin was smooth and healthy. Her eyes were bright. She looked more alive than she had ever felt. The news of her surgery had spread across the galaxy like fire. Every species was talking about it. Some praised the humans for their bravery and skill. Others condemned them for interfering with another culture's traditions. The debate grew louder every day. The Nuri government had sent official messages demanding her return. They said she must face the High Council and answer for her choices. They did not say what punishment awaited her, but Vela could guess. At best, she would be shamed in front of her people. At worst, she would be cast out, forbidden from ever seeing her family again. But she was not afraid. She had faced death. What could words do to her now? A knock came at her door. She opened it to find Taeho standing outside. He looked better than he had the last time she saw him. The dark circles under his eyes were gone. His smile was warm and real. Are you ready? He asked. Vela nodded. My ship leaves in 1 hour. I wanted to say goodbye before I go. They walked together through the station's corridors. People stopped to watch them pass. Many bowed their heads in respect. A few glared with disapproval. Vila ignored them all. They came to a quiet observation deck with large windows looking out at the stars. This was where they had talked many times over the past month, sharing stories about their worlds and their lives. It had become their special place. I do not know what will happen when I return home, Vila said. My people do not change easily. They might reject everything I say. They might listen, Taeho said. You almost died and now you are alive. That is a powerful argument. Vela smiled. You humans are very optimistic. We have to be. It is how we survive. They stood in silence for a while, watching the distant stars. Then Vela reached into her pocket and pulled out a small object. It was a shard of crystal, about the size of her thumb, glowing with soft inner light. This is for you, she said, holding it out to him. Taeho looked at the crystal with wide eyes. What is it? Among my people, we can produce small crystals from our own bodies. It takes months to grow one, and it contains a piece of our life force. To give one to another person is the greatest honor we can bestow. Vila pressed the crystal into his hand. You saved my life. This is my way of saying that a part of me will always be with you, no matter how far apart we are. It was warm against his palm, and he could feel a gentle pulse inside it, like a tiny heartbeat. I do not know what to say, he admitted. Say you will keep it safe, Vela said. And say that if I ever return to this station, you will still be here. I will be here, Tejo promised. Always. They embraced. It was the first time they had ever done so. Among Nuri, such physical contact was rare and meaningful. But Vela did not care about traditions anymore. Some things were more important than rules. Goodbye, Tejo, she whispered. Goodbye, Vela. Be brave. She stepped back, smiled one last time, and walked toward the departure gate. She did not look back. She knew that if she did, she might not have the strength to leave. The journey home took 2 weeks. Vela spent most of it preparing for what was to come. She rehearsed speeches in her mind. She anticipated arguments and planned responses. She thought about every lesson she had learned from the humans, tried to put it into words her people would understand. When her ship finally landed on her home world, a crowd was waiting. Thousands of Nuri had gathered at the spaceport, their lights flickering with emotions ranging from curiosity to anger. Her family was there too. Her mother stood in front, her face unreadable. Her father stood beside her, looking older than Vila remembered. And her little brother stood between them, his eyes bright with hope. Vila walked down the ramp and faced them all. Guards escorted her to the Great Hall, where the High Council waited. The council consisted of 12 elders, the oldest and wisest of the Nuri. They sat on raised platforms. Looking down at her with cold, judging eyes, the head of the council, an ancient female named Elder Myra, spoke first. You have broken our most sacred customs. You allowed an outsider to touch your internal systems. You brought shame to yourself, your family, and your entire species. What do you have to say? Vila took a deep breath. Then she began to speak. She told them about her illness. She told them about the human doctor who refused to let her die. She told them about the surgery, the pain, the fear, in the moment when she woke up and realized she was still alive. But more than that, she told them what she had learned. For thousands of years, we have believed that accepting help is weakness, she said. We have let our children die from diseases that could have been cured. We have watched our loved ones suffer when they did not have to suffer. We have called it dignity. We have called it honor. But I have seen another way. Her voice grew stronger. The humans do not see weakness in asking for help. They see strength. They see wisdom. They see the courage to admit that no one can face every challenge alone. They have survived and thrived not because they are stronger than other species, but because they support each other, because they refuse to abandon anyone, no matter how hopeless the situation seems. She looked at each member of the council. I am alive because a human chose to help me when my own people would not. I am alive because he believed that my life was worth fighting for, and I am not ashamed. I am grateful. I am proud. The hall was silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Then, from the crowd behind her, Vila heard a sound. It was her little brother, clapping his hands together. The sound echoed through the vast hall, small but clear. Another person joined him. Then another. Then a dozen more. Soon, hundreds of Nuri were clapping, their lights brightening with emotion. Elder Mira raised her hand, and the hall fell silent again. She looked at Vela for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. "You have given us much to think about," she said. "Perhaps our traditions are not as perfect as we believed. Perhaps there is room for change." She paused. "You are not forgiven. But you are not condemned either. Go home to your family. We will consider your words." Vela bowed and turned to leave. As she walked through the crowd, people reached out to touch her, to feel her light, to see for themselves the woman who had defied death and custom and returned to tell the story. Outside the great hall, her family was waiting. Her mother stepped forward first, tears running down her glowing cheeks. She pulled Vela into a tight embrace. "I thought I had lost you," she whispered. "I came back," Vela said. "I will always come back." Far away, on a station floating between the stars, Tejo sat in his office and held a small glowing crystal in his hand. He did not know what was happening on the Nuri home world. He did not know if Vela was safe, or happy, or even alive. But he knew that he had done the right thing. He had reached out to a stranger in need and refused to let her face the darkness alone. That was what humans did. That was what they had always done. And as long as there were people like Tejo in the galaxy, there would always be hope. The stars shone on, cold and bright and eternal. But somewhere among them, a new light was growing. A light that would change everything.